So welcome to the openSUSE installation video. The welcome screen is the first screen that you're going to see. It just has welcome in a variety of languages and shows that, the CD is actually booting, but you don't have to do anything here. The next thing that you'll see will be the CD or DVD menu. This is stored on the disk and gives you several choices. If you do nothing, it will boot your system as normal. However, you can also start the installation from here. You'll notice that there's a small pulsing ring next to the boot from hard disk entry in the menu. This is a countdown timer. When this is up, it will then boot from hard disk. To stop the timer, press any key, for example cursor down. The timer is now stopped and we can look at all the other options on the screen. Along the bottom of the screen you'll see a number of options which can be accessed using the function keys. First we'll press F1. This shows a short description of how the menu works. When you're inside this system, you can use the cursor keys to navigate, Enter to bring up an item, or Escape to exit the menu system. With F2, you can now change the preferred language. This is for the initial steps of the installation, but you can also change this later on. F3 changes the video mode which is used for the installation. You don't normally have to change this from its defaults, but if you do have trouble during the graphical installation, it might be worth trying to change it to VESA mode or even text mode, where the installation is completely text-based. With the F4 source menu, you can set the installation source. The default source is the media that you've booted from. However, you can also set other installation sources, like for example network installations. Pressing F5 brings up a series of predefined kernel options. If you do have trouble installing the system, you may want to try these options, starting with safe settings. With F6, you can load special drivers in case these are needed for installation on your hardware. If you're using the retail box DVD, you can switch with F7 between 32 and 64-bit mode. In this video we're using the downloaded DVD, which is always only for one architecture, so you won't see this option. In the center bottom of the screen you see the boot options line. This is used for passing options directly to the kernel or to the boot system. By just typing on this line you can add any necessary boot options, for example 3 if you don't want to boot into the graphical system but would rather boot into the text-based system. You can see that there's a list of different boot options which are currently highlighted by the cursor in the center of the screen. Because this video is about installation, that's all we're going to show. So what you should do now is move the cursor using the up and down arrow keys on the keyboard and press return. Now the installation kernel is loading. You'll see there's a progress bar at the bottom right of the screen which shows the progress as the installation begins. If you want, you can press escape at this point. This will hide the splash screen and you will see all the messages that come from the kernel as the system boots. If you downloaded the CD or DVD image from the internet, you can do a media check at this point in the installation. This ensures that the download and burning process functioned correctly. This process does take a long time, so we're going to skip it during this video. But if you download your own media, you should do it, because problems that occur later in the installation will cause you big problems. Before the real installation begins, you have to click through a license agreement. You can show the license in a variety of languages. When you've found your language, click Yes and click Next. Now we've reached the installation mode screen. This is the point where you decide what kind of installation you're going to do, either a new installation or an update of an existing installation. You can update from openSUSE 10.2, but we don't recommend that you update from any earlier versions of SUSE. By clicking on Other Options, you see a couple of more choices how you can actually boot the system. Repair mode allows you to run some automatic repair checks on the installed system, and Boot Installed System uses the kernel that you're currently running to boot a previously installed system from hard disk, say for example if you've got problems using your bootloader. Below that you see two checkboxes. These control additional sources of software called repositories, which you can add to the installation at this step in the process. Online repositories are downloaded from the internet. Add-on products come from separate CDs. If you download the DVD or CD, you don't need to use either of these options at this point, unless you're using the CD and you're not using the English language. You can always add any other additional repositories after the installation is completed and get your extra software then. Click Next now, and the package manager for the installation starts up. The first time it does this, it'll copy the repositories from the DVD or the CD and make a cache. This speeds up the installation. Next we see the clock and time zone selection screen. The default selection depends upon the language selection you made in the first step. You can override it here. The hardware clock can be set to local time or UTC. If this installation is going to be sharing the computer with a Windows installation, you should use local time. Windows doesn't do UTC. But if you're making a system which only uses Linux, use UTC. You can check that the time is right. If the time's not right, you can change it, bring up the change button, and you can enter a new time. Once you've selected the region and the time zone within that region that you're going to use, click Next. Now we come to the desktop selection screen. Most people are going to want to use an easy-to-use graphical interface with their openSUSE system, so we have several options for you at this point. GNOME and KDE are the most popular desktop systems. Both of them bring you a lot of programs to do everything that you need for your daily work. Which one you choose is a personal preference, but you're not bound to it. You can install both of them later on if you prefer. If you select the Other button, you can have a couple of choices for installing a leaner system. For example, a text mode installation if you're installing a server. However, most people want a full desktop system. In this example, we're going to install KDE. Now we're at the installation settings screen. This is where you can control all the details of the installation. The Overview tab shows you the basic settings that we made as soon as you press Next. The most important one to look at is the partitioning section. This controls how the disk is divided up and where different parts of your Linux system are installed, and if you have another operating system installed, how much space is going to be given over to that operating system. Items that are red mean that a partition is going to be formatted, i.e. cleared completely, or removed and deleted. If you click on the Expert tab, you can change even more options. As we go down, you can see the keyboard layout and partitioning again, also the software selections, where the bootloader will be installed, the time zone that was previously selected, the language that was previously selected, and the run level, which controls where the system will boot into when it starts up, either a graphical mode or a text-only mode. For now, we're going to go with the default settings, so we're going to press Accept. Before the installation begins, if you're using the DVD or the non-open source repositories, you will see some licenses that have to be clicked through. These licenses are there because we include some proprietary software, and that imposes some extra conditions on the redistribution of these packages. After you've accepted all of these licenses, the final confirmation screen will pop up. At this point, nothing yet has been changed on your computer. You can break off the installation at this point and no changes will be made. Your computer will be just as it was before. If you're not sure of any of the options, press back and review them one more time. After pressing the Install button, you'll see the installer first partitioning the hard disk in accordance with the choices you made earlier, and then it'll start the package installation process. The first tab just shows a high-level overview of what things are being installed. The second tab, Details, shows you each package as it is installed. And the third tab, Release Notes, gives you some interesting news about what changed since the previous versions of openSUSE. But you should have plenty of time now to read them, so give them a good read. On most hardware, the installation takes about 25 minutes. In order to speed up the video, we're not going to show you the whole installation, so we'll come back as soon as the install has finished. After the package installation is completed, you'll see that the bootloader is installed. And now the system is going to reboot into the installed system and configure the installation. You can press OK or Return at the pop-up, or the timer will do the reboot for you automatically. And that's the end of part 1.